All right, let's go ahead and get started. I think, again, I was faster than 30 seconds, but I want to give the group more time to present. Hello, everyone. If you are new to the track, this is the Teaching, Learning, and Transforming the Student Experience track. I'm Darlene Declan. I am the MC for this group. Welcome and thank you for joining us. We have had a great lineup over the last few days. This presentation has folks from across the CSU, so it'll be great to hear all the different perspectives. Some quick housekeeping. I think if you've been with us for a while, you know my two partners in crime, Christina Gutierrez and Stacy Garcia. They are our Zoom hosts, and they handle all of things technical with this. So to help them out, please mute your microphones so that we eliminate background noise and don't interrupt the presentation. Also, to help our presenters, please use the raise hand icon or place your questions in the chat so that we can monitor those and get those to our presenters. To keep us on time, I like to do about a 10-minute left check to let everybody know where we're at, and that will be at 11:15. So with that, let's get to this session, Student Access and Connectivity, Data and Action. This session will be presented by our colleagues from CSU campuses and the Chancellor's Office, Mark Hendricks from Sacramento, Orlando Leon from Fresno, Bethany Rizzardi from Humboldt, and Kate Miffitt from the Chancellor's Office. It is my pleasure to turn the virtual floor over to our presenters.
Thank you, Darlene, and thank you everyone for joining us this morning. I hope you've been enjoying the conference so far. So today we're going to talk about a survey that we conducted in the fall. So let's see, and can I just get a wave if you can see the slides okay? Great. Okay, so today what we're going to do is we're going to share some data from a student study that was conducted in fall 2020 on internet connectivity and device access. And we'll talk about different strategies and interventions that campuses tried. We have our three CIOs from the campuses that participated in the quantitative phase to talk about how they address those student challenges. And then we'll talk about what campuses are preparing for or anticipating next as we have students returning to campus and anticipate some hybrid teaching and learning moving forward. So for some more details, we partnered with EDUCAUSE, I think it was last August, to kind of design a survey that would look at student access to internet and devices as we all moved online. And the quantitative phase took place in from October 2020 to December 2020. We had 3 CSU campuses participate with over 1,000 students who completed the survey. And then this survey was available to EDUCAUSE partners across the country. So over 6,000 students completed this survey from other public four-year institutions. And so that's our comparison data set. First, we'll talk about internet access, and I'll just share a couple of data points and then open it up for discussion with our CIOs. So about 10% of students from the CSU reported having no internet access at home, while closer to 12% reported that they had unreliable internet access. And about 12% of students very often or always had trouble having internet connection strong enough to meet their needs as students. When students had trouble accessing internet, they went to a variety of different places to find alternative ways to connect, most often at public spaces or a friend or family member's house. Fewer CSU students went on campus than our comparison data set from other four-year institutions. But I think that's probably because most of our campuses were closed, while other campuses might have had more openness for students to go on campus. Finally, there was some open fields where students could leave comments, and this was one that was striking to me. A student said, "I went to Starbucks. It feels horrible sometimes when you don't have the right tools to be a student. Thankfully, I got that fixed and got internet at home not too long after that." So I'm going to pause here and I'll stop sharing for a moment, but we're going to talk about these two questions with Bethany, Orlando, and Mark. We're going to talk about steps that your campuses took to address connectivity issues, and then some of what you're anticipating for fall. So I'll stop here so we can have a conversation. Orlando, why don't I start with you? Could you talk a bit about some of the steps that you took on your campus to address internet access challenges for students?
Absolutely. Last year, and it's so hard to remember the whole time frame. It feels like it's been years, but it's only been about a year. So around March of 2020, when we really started to realize everyone was going to go home, we recognized the need that our students would have. Fortunately, we had already an iPad loaner program, and our library had a laptop type of loaner program. So we thought the devices were okay for the most part. We did a couple of main things. We sent out a couple of surveys through our institutional research group to find out how many of you might need, as students, a device and you don't have one already and the loaner program is not sufficient, and or internet. And so we took that information to try to get a sense of, well, what might we need? And I think at that time we were just getting word that we might have CARES funding and that we could use it towards something like this. So our president, who's now our chancellor, our president made a decision, let's just extend, have the ability basically to provide internet through Wi-Fi hotspot to anyone who has a need, anyone who basically says, I need one. So our surveys indicated that we might need around, I forget what the exact number was at the time, but several thousand. And we said, okay, well, there are going to be no shows for people. So what might that number be? And then we basically frantically started looking around. We talked to T-Mobile, Sprint, AT&T, and Verizon, the normal carriers, and there were back orders for weeks, if not months. But we were able to get some refurbished ones and then get those connected to the correct data plans. And so that's how we were able to get everything in, and literally down to the wire as students were trying to do their online work. So we were able to get it to them, and we just kept doing that throughout the whole rest of the spring term. And I think people were still getting hotspots all the way up till May 2020. I'll pause there.
Great, thank you. And Bethany, I know from the student focus groups that your campus had a slightly different approach. Do you mind talking about what Humboldt did?
Yeah, we did offer hotspots similarly to Fresno, and in fact, Fresno saved the day for us at one point when we couldn't get some hotspots. They let us borrow some or get some off of them. But we have a lot. We're very rural here, and we don't have good cell service everywhere. And so I give this example. I live 1 mile from campus. I can walk to my house from campus and back easily, and I have 1 bar of cell reception at my house. And so the thought of our students living, even that close to campus, but I can barely make a phone call and send a text on that 1 bar. There's no way anyone can sustain a Zoom session on that. So we really had to work with students and get to the heart of, do you have a cell signal? And can you, trying to put it into their words, can you stream a movie okay on that? Or is that, a no-go? And for a lot of students, it ended up being about 400 students, a hotspot was a great solution. But we had some extremely rural students where there's no cell signal and there's really no fixed internet service there. And so we had a number of students that we worked with them to find satellite providers and getting them financial aid reimbursement so that they could do satellite internet at their homes in these rural places. And we had a few students who also had no power. And so we made arrangements to get them some kind of solar powered battery banks or things that they could come and charge in town and take with them. So there was quite a bit of troubleshooting to figure out how do we support these somewhat unique cases for our students.
Thank you. And so when you break it down by campus, both Fresno and Humboldt State had higher rates of internet inaccessibility, right, because of the rural kind of nature of the areas. Mark, can you talk a bit about how Sac State addressed internet connectivity issues?
Yeah, sure. Well, like Orlando, we reached out with Office of Institutional Research, did some student surveys, and we found approximately 6% of the students we thought might not have a laptop or internet access. And so like the other campuses, we did work with Verizon and AT&T to get a large number of hotspots. We have currently about 2,000 out there that we're paying service on right now. Most of them are at about $40 a month. And interestingly, in any area, there's so many dependencies. Like what I found, even Cabinet had trouble communicating on Zoom. It's not just students or anything. We all had trouble. And that may be, the trouble may be because your house is far from a PBX or some kind of cabling's too long for one type of service, or it's not available. Like West Sacramento has its own service provider and not Comcast. In my neighborhood, I actually have almost no cellular service. I have to tunnel my cellular service through my Comcast internet, and that's in the city. So urban areas have huge problems communicating and with data. And then we also we're a pretty large regional university. And so we have a lot of people in the foothills of the Sierras, and they have a lot of issues too that the other campuses like Bethany's have too. So we tried a number of things. We built fit out a parking structure with a lot of Wi-Fi access. It's really tough to get good metrics on how much it was used, but it wasn't used much, but it was kind of a one outlet for people that couldn't get access. We also, like we said, we had AT&T and Verizon access points, and we had a lot of people changing them out. They'd start with AT&T and they'd come back and get a Verizon or vice versa, depending on where they had best service. We also worked with Comcast to purchase high-speed internet access through the Comcast Internet Essentials program. And we offer that free to any Pell-eligible student. And so, we tried all those messages or methods. It's surprising how few people take advantage of them, no matter how much you communicate that. We still have capacity. Certainly in Comcast, we had a ton of capacity. And it's just really hard to communicate and get the students to take advantage of the programs.
Thank you, Mark. So I'm going to ask a question, and if anyone can respond, but as we're looking to fall and anticipating students to come back to campus, do you anticipate continuing some of these interventions? Do you think those will stop? Like, what are you anticipating for fall?
I'll take a hopefully quick first stab. So by the end of our spring semester, we had approximately 4,000 hotspots, spring of 2020. 4,000 hotspots out to students. We're going to keep that support, even though most students will come back to campus this fall, just in anticipation of things might change, and we just don't know. However, like Mark, I learned a lot from his initiative with Comcast Essentials. We were going to transition students to the $9.99 plan using vouchers and coupon codes, but that's uncertain right now because AT&T has given us a better rate. So we're going to go with something, but we're trying to be very clear with our students. We can only do this while we have the federal funding. So there's some good questions that we're asking, and also we provide information about the emergency broadband benefit program that would help most of our students and families be able to get broadband for as long as the pandemic is declared a pandemic, and then 6 months after. And then also there's a great initiative with the California and federal initiatives for broadband infrastructure. So we're hoping that maybe within the next couple of years that will help to give us an idea of what is to come. Hotspots have been great, but we also realize there are some downsides. And one is the latency of getting information back and forth. And that was really affecting our students when they were trying to use virtual computing labs like a Porto or AppStream or other things. So we did notice that those were on hotspots had a not so great experience. So it is something we're trying to figure out. So hopefully the on-campus plus hotspots and other aspects will provide the benefits for our students for this coming year.
Yeah, continuing all the programs as long as we have funding. We did have some problems, like Verizon gave us a hotspot that had a recall, and ultimately there were issues about fires. So we've had to try to swap all those out. And then we've been trying to swap out our AT&T hotspots we got a deal before the Chancellor's, the system got a deal. We got a better rate for the AT&T, and we're trying to swap them out. But, again, it's difficult to communicate with people, and until you turn it off, they don't really act. But, we are facing a kind of a cliff, and we're going to continue funding. We're spending about $70,000 a month on hotspots, and we'll continue to do that as long as we have her funding. But we need to look for other sources.
And we're in the same boat. As long as we have funding, we'll be able to support that. And we know that the students who are relying on this now were the students who were in our labs late at night, using them, or in the library to get internet access. And so we feel that as long as those aren't on offer, these will need to be available. And this fall, that starts to switch. Our campus will be open. We'll have about 50% of our classes in person. And so I think it's something we can safely start to phase out, but as long as the money's there to pay for it, we will continue supporting students who are virtual in this way.
Thank you. All right, so I'm going to share a couple more data points, and we'll take a look at the responses regarding device access. So the rates of students replying that they have access to a device are much higher than access to internet. So really only about 2% of students reported that they didn't have access to a device, and most students are completing their coursework on a laptop. However, there are still reliability issues for students with device access. So a number of students, over 12%, had reported that they had to miss a class due to lack of access to a device or a device malfunctioning. And about 9% reported that they were unable to complete an assignment or a project due to a lack of a device. One student shared, I have to share the laptop I use with other family members. This means I don't always get to use the laptop when I need it. And as a student, this discourages me from doing my work. So while the data suggests that students have devices, the reliability and kind of the sharing devices is probably happening more than is evident in the data. So I want to talk a bit about, your experiences on campuses. Again, we can talk a bit about how your IT department supported device access for students. But I wanted to talk to you about the reliability issues that have emerged that students have shared. So Mark, could you start us off this time? Could you talk a bit about how Sacramento State addressed device access for students?
Well, we had, a lot of students don't like to carry their device to school or needed a device at school. So we've had a pretty robust short-term lending program for like daily use for quite a while. And when we started to get ready to go off campus, we started to take those out of service and re-image them so that they could be used off campus, and handed those out. And since then, we've bought about 3,000 laptops, Macs and Windows laptops. We currently have about 2,500 out. That's the number I'm looking at, or 2,400. We provide a laptop to anyone that wants it. And if we can, we give them a Mac or Windows when we can. And that goes for faculty as well. Faculty need to teach. We've tried to address adjunct faculty, making sure that everybody has what they need. I think one of the concerns we had a lot was how much we should communicate this to the students in the campus, because we were worried that there would just be a rush to get the equipment. And what we found is we've had plenty of equipment. People just they have what they need, or they just haven't followed through to come get equipment. But so we've done that, through most of COVID. Another thing we did through COVID was we took some of our HER funding and we created a program with the bookstore on campus, Follett, and we provided a $250 grant to any students on any qualifying laptop. We worked with the campus to come up with hardware standards, and then worked with the bookstore to present equipment that would meet our hardware standards, which included Macs and Windows boxes. And we offered the $250 discount, and anyone that wanted to get a device could actually put up to $2,000 on a campus charge account, which they could pay for when they got their financial aid or extra help. So we've continued to do that, and we've expanded that to include, it's actually now $250 for any graduate or undergraduate student that hasn't used the program. And then for new students and new transfer undergraduate students, we're offering a $600 discount on any device, which that's enough to buy a couple of devices, Windows systems on the bookstore website. And we have for Pell eligible students or EFC 0, we're offering an additional $300. So you could actually get a Mac if you want a MacBook or something. And we're really happy with the program. And of course, you can also put more money on the campus account and use like our CARES service to request additional money too. So really, there's no excuse for these students not to have a new laptop of their own.
Thank you. And Bethany, what was your approach at Humboldt State?
We saw the same thing in terms of the stories that came in, and sort of the sense that students a little bit felt like they had to justify why they needed a laptop, even though we didn't feel they did. But we heard stories from, I have a laptop, but I have 3 kids who are having to do distance learning, and so I really need this so I can do school, and they can use that one for their school. And we were just sort of, here, please take our laptop. That was all we cared about, was someone raising their hand. So all of that, our biggest challenge with the laptops, because about 10% of our students ended up with one, is that at the end of last spring semester, we would get stories from faculty about how their students never said anything about not having a device and were failing the class. And that was really heartbreaking. And so we did a big push on communication with faculty specifically, and asked faculty for fall and spring of this year to, repeatedly throughout the semester, please make it known that if students do not have a device to succeed in the class, that we have it for them. And even with that, and faculty were great about sort of, I have the student who doesn't have something, where's that link again? And, we got those questions all the time, and we're quickly able to get their students service. So that the faculty were such a great ally in getting our students served. We still had some of those into the semester, I didn't make it because I didn't have a device. And so that communication piece was a challenge, but I feel like faculty really helped us make sure students could succeed in their classes from a technology point of view.
Thank you. Orlando, what was Fresno State's approach?
So I'll highlight 4 different topics as quickly as I can. One, faculty and deans work directly with me, or I work directly with them. And one common request was a more high-powered device. So at the time, we had about 4,000 iPads out in addition to the 4,000 hotspots. But there was a gap where people were saying, we need this for our arts class, or we need this for our engineering class. So we tried to find whatever we could from our existing staff inventory to be able to give some high-powered MacBooks, for example, or MacBook Pros. So this coming fall, we're going to adjust, and we've allocated some HER funding to be able to buy about 50 high-powered computers, a mix of Dell Precisions and MacBook Pros. What's interesting, and I think that I'm going to connect 2 topics, our iPad loaner program and the upcoming C Success program that we're going to engage in. We really need to understand how much those are being used, how effectively those are being used for coursework, as opposed to, let's say, just consuming media like Netflix or Hulu. So we're going to try our best to measure that somehow. We're not totally sure. However, that leads to my fourth topic. We noticed a really important trend, and I just got this data, so I'm still processing it. Our Porto usage was pretty great in some ways. We had over 11,000 people log in to Porto in the fall and about 7,000 plus log in the spring of 2021. We're not sure, we got to look deeper into the data, but the average user logged into Porto 2.28 times per week and ended up using an average of 33.6 hours of the virtual application system per week. That's almost all day in class. I mean, it's just a lot of hours. So we're trying to figure out, well, what did they use? And this was across all schools and colleges. So we have 8 schools and colleges, and it was students, not just engineering, not just STEM, but our business school and our social sciences school. So this is really interesting data that we're going to try to figure out. Now, as students come back, that digital equipment need, or that digital kind of accessibility of having some tool, specialized software, whatever it might be, it would be really interesting to know so that we can make a better informed decision for the coming year. So that's what I'll present now. We're gonna emphasize our virtual computing option, and we're gonna see how the usage is, even when our students come back to see what we're gonna do for the future.
Thank you. And that's a great segue to my next question, because I was going to ask if the experience with COVID and the anticipation of more hybrid, both teaching and learning and perhaps work, if that is changing your IT area's strategy around physical labs. Like, are you thinking differently about physical spaces on campus, or are you seeing those as kind of being more in need given the circumstances? And I'll open the floor to anyone on that.
You know, I don't think we have made a decision about this, but we feel thankful that we got to test Chromebooks as an option so extensively, and quite frankly, we didn't love them. We didn't think they served students as well as we had hoped, but we also appreciated that never would we have ever gotten buy-in to do a pilot on such a big scale for something like that. And so, you know, there are certain areas where we can absolutely see where our virtual lab is going to continue to be a solution, and we may not need as many physical lab spaces, but for certain applications, especially GIS, even though we can run that in our virtual system, students having 2 monitors and all of that is just really, really valuable. So we're thinking about that, thinking about how to approach just that. But we also know our students, really, some of the comments were along the lines of, I relied on the lab not just for internet and a computer, but for quiet. I don't have a good place at home to study. So I don't foresee us getting away from devices on campus in physical labs, but it could be a little different.
So, sorry, more data for us here. About 65.5% of our state-funded lab computers are 5 years or older. Now, I know we like to do a 3 or 4 year refresh cycle ideally, but we've been squeezing out 7 or 8 years. But 5 or older is still a good indicator that our labs really need to be refreshed. So we have about 1,400 or 1,500 computer lab computers across the whole campus in different areas. And it's all funded through, okay, well, we need money. So really one-time funds. So the requests have been coming in from all of our deans saying, can we use HERF funding? And our decision is no, we're not going to use HERF funding for computer labs. That doesn't align with the COVID-19 needs. That's our interpretation. So we are in trouble. We're going to try to figure out, but using a Porto or some other virtual streaming tool could be meeting some of the needs. As Bethany is indicating, maybe mobile laptop or Chromebook types of cards could also be another need. That quiet space is a really important point that we're going to consider, but maybe not as many as we have today. So we're thinking of all these different things, including the funding, but also reclaiming some space for classrooms, which had been a really big need prior to the pandemic. We'll see where that goes after we discuss the future of education and higher ed in the months to come. So that's our approach currently. We're having a good discussion on where that future is going to take us.
And we've worked with the colleges to create or to use sassafras essentially to provide remote access to many of our computer labs, and that's worked pretty well. The kind of Microsoft saying they're going to make it illegal or for us to use that in the future. I use the licensing as it is. So we're reaching out to the Chancellor's office and trying to work with the Chancellor's office to explore virtual lab and virtual app options. And one of the things that since we do primarily pass out and help students purchase full workstations, I think there's a little bit less need for some of the virtualization, but certainly the specialized software, there are issues there. We've also spent the majority of our effort remodeling all of our current classrooms, making them Zoom capable as best we can, which is about 460 rooms, which has been a big project. And we're hoping to follow that up with a lab modification and some sort of virtualization, knowing we need to go that direction.
Kate, we're at the 10-minute mark. So if you want to open up to Q&A for the participants.
Great. Yeah, so we have one final data point to share, and Allie will invite attendees to post any questions in the chat while we share this final data point. And so one of the final things we ask students about is where they go for support and help when they're having technology issues. And, a striking data point here is that, about 5% of students go to their institution for help. Mostly students try to address challenges on their own. So, I wanted to get some thoughts from our CIOs on IT support to students and some of the, is this a communications and awareness issue? So some of the open responses that students reported, some said that they didn't know they could reach out to campus IT. Some said that they found IT to be really helpful, but they, they wish there was another location. A lot of them reported being really grateful that they were able to get a hotspot from campus. So there's, a range of student experiences with IT support. So with that, I will turn it over to our CIOs to just to get your thoughts on IT support and students maybe reluctance or why don't they go to their campus support when they need help?
They don't know about us. And so, sorry, Bethany, I'll remain brief. They don't know about us. And I tried to tackle this in my first year here by being part of, I joined the Craig School of Business here. And I said, let me sponsor a capstone project or something and have our students speak about IT services. And yes, many of them just didn't know we existed to be there to help. Now, of course, there is a kind of a quirk where we need students to support other students. We can't literally touch, we're not supposed to touch computers as professionals, but our students can. So we have a great Discovery program that's helped a lot with student-to-student support. So they're indirectly using our support, or directly, indirectly. So we just have to keep communicating. That's going to be our key tactic.
Yeah, I think we certainly know that students do come to us for school related if they can't log into their account, and we've done our best to automate some of that, so password resets don't require calling in, and so maybe we've done a little too good a job of automating some of those troubleshooting things, but we certainly have students coming to us for HSU related things, and I think just not that connection of we could help with other things, because as Orlando said, it's a little fuzzy on whether we can or can't. I expect we're going to see a shift with the C-Success program, with the iPad program, that now that we're issuing devices to students, that there may be a stronger connection to this is where I go to get help when I need help.
We do provide quite a bit of student support, and we have resources on Canvas for them to find out about things that we're offering. But we have the same problem as far as equipment support. And I think we all kind of agreed that's an area of work. And I think that is an area where the C-Success probably does put us in a better direction than giving everybody a choice of their own device. It's harder to help them when it's their personal device.
So I wonder if you have any thoughts on, we talked a bit about student support. Has there been a shift, would you say, among faculty in their relationship to IT and IT support throughout the pandemic? Like, did you find that more faculty were reaching out either for technical challenges, but also maybe just in their kind of teaching and learning support? Do you feel like there's been a shift in that relationship?
Yeah. Well, we gave away a ton of free stuff. Faculty love us, right? And our team members provided, thousands of hours of support, Zoom sessions to get people online that weren't before, using Zoom and Canvas and things like that. So that put us in a great position. I think as we start to take away some of these things or take back them or not offer them, we'll be less popular. But yeah, I think there's been a great, relationship with faculty and IT, and I'm really happy to see that we're partnering better than ever.
We've had a pretty strong relationship with faculty over the past several years. They're definitely not afraid to reach out to me directly, even when it's with good news, which is great. It's not just complaints. And so we'll partner, and especially with the deans and the department chairs. So I think part of it is just, again, the communication, appearing at department meetings or chair meetings, appearing at the academic affairs leadership team meetings. So I won't say that it's gotten any better or deeper over the past year. It's remained strong for us.
I agree. I think we've been in a strong place, and I do think it got better. We were aggressive in our outreach to faculty about their needs and equipment that they need, so that we made sure not to miss anyone. And we did quite a bit of follow-up, and I viewed it as a sign of success when we sent out the "What do you need this spring?" And we had very few requests, because except for those new people that were being onboarded during that time. And that told me that we had caught everybody else, and that we had made visits to departments and chairs meetings and all of that to make sure folks knew equipment was available, and we were helping get even internet squared away. So I feel like it did strengthen that relationship.
And are there other key partners on campus, like the libraries, for example, come to mind? I'm wondering if you could talk about your key relationships that help enable IT to support students.
Our library was amazing, and they did all of our logistical shipping and all of that for the students. So we have an equipment checkout group that was able to focus on faculty, but then our library did all of the student shipping and receiving and checking back in. And it was so great to just plug it right into, as though it was a textbook a book being checked out. So it was in the account. We didn't have to think about those logistics, and we just got them CARES money and told them what to ship. And it was so great.
We have a Center for Teaching and Learning that we used a lot. That's a great relationship that we've had. And just generally academic affairs and student affairs, whether we're, those are just critical partnerships.
Yeah, very similar. Library, they have the most space that we, especially with our potentially 6,000 to 7,000 new iPads coming in a week or so, and procurement, and also the mailroom, great partners. And then, as Mark was just saying, the Center for Faculty Excellence on our campus has been a wonderful partner over the past 18 plus months, and before that too. So just so many deep relationships that are needed. And of course, at the top level, it's important that the cabinet members are functioning and speaking regularly and well, and that's been really good here as well.
Thank you. So we have just about a minute left. I will invite people to post any questions in the chat, but if there are none, first, I just want to do a couple of acknowledgements. I'd like to thank EDUCAUSE for partnering with us to do this, conduct this survey. And this spring, we conducted several focus groups, the last of which we're doing at San Diego State at the end of this month. And so the full report of the quantitative and qualitative phases will be published in early fall. And then a number of people contributed. There were PIs at each of the campuses. So Chris Hernandez and Matt Zivit from Fresno State, Mary Vernosh from Humboldt State, and Alan Crow and Peggy Kay from Sacramento State were our campus PIs. and Chenoa Woods in Academic Success and Inclusive Excellence in the Chancellor's Office provided the early analysis for the report that we shared internally. So I just want to acknowledge all those contributions. And thank you all for attending today. We hope you enjoy the final session of the conference and see you at some activities this afternoon.
Thanks, Mark, Kate, Orlando, and Bethany. Another great presentation to take us into the home stretch of the conference. To keep the conversation going, again, join the Slack channel, Cal State Tech Slack channel. I think Christina always puts it into the chat. Again, we also have those on-demand sessions, so please take a look at those as well to partner this great session and other great sessions online. And our upcoming session in about 5 minutes is high flex, low flex, all flex for CSU flex models. So see everyone at 11:30.